Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the MHP Show podcast. I'm your host, Derek Vickers, here today. I'm by my lonesome today. I haven't done an episode by myself in a bit, actually, and we're going to do this live now, and we're going to see how this goes. Sometimes it's a little weird when I do an episode by myself because I'm just one way flowing out the whole time. And sometimes it's just like, man, I need some communication back. So if you get on, leave a comment, drop a question, and we will be glad to answer it for you. And if you have not yet joined our Facebook group, Mobile Home Park Investing Pros, we have a Facebook group. We're almost up to 3,000 members. Just go join that. I give free stuff to the group, some of my free underwriting tools. And, we drop content there all the time. And sometimes we even do specific streams and things for that show. Also, you can actually send us an email if you would like to get our passive mobile home park investing guide. You can DM, you can drop in the message MHP, or you can email me at derek@victorycapital.com. We would love to get you that. So today on the show, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how you find a deal in a wild and crazy world, because it's a wild world out there now. People getting shot at, there's wars, there's all kinds of stuff and distractions going on. So the best thing you can actually do is to stay focused. You got to stay focused because you can still find deals. And I hear people all the time, they're like, there's no good deals out there, everything's too expensive. Well, okay, that's fine. If that's going to keep you from looking at deals, then you're never going to find a deal. Like that, to me, that just sounds like an excuse not to take action. Like, oh, there's no good deals out there. Well, there's definitely overpriced deals out there. There's still people that want, 4 cap numbers. But in my opinion, those people aren't real sellers, because now the seller, if they want to sell, they're going to have to come down on price. I mean, there's no question about it, because I don't know. Let's see what's the 5-year treasury at today. Let's see. So the 5-year is at 4.08, right? So depending on your lender, you may be able to get 300 or 350 basis points above that. So you're going to be, between 7 and 8%, right? And a 4 cap just doesn't work at 7 or 8% interest. And so if a seller wants to sell, they're going to have to capitulate on price a little bit, and the real sellers will. And I'm telling you, I've seen this in the market. So don't give me that shit that there's no deals out there. We just closed 3 deals. I have 2 people in my one-on-one coaching program. They've never bought a freaking deal in their life, and both of them have deals under contract about to close in the state of Florida, the other place where you can't buy deals. And so you got to get over these misconceptions, because you can't don't even take my advice. Just go look. Like, if you're like, Derek says, hey, this is a great place to buy deals, you should listen, but actually go look for yourself and see if you can get confirmation of the data. Because I hear people all the time, they're like, oh, you can't buy in Florida. You can't buy anything in Florida. It doesn't work in Florida. But, we just closed 3 deals, and my other 2 people have 2 deals under contract in the state of Florida. So that's not impossible. But you can find a deal in this crazy market, and you're like, well, how do you do that? Well, it's the same freaking principles. It's the same principles that have been alive and well since 2020, when rates were 4%. Now, the only difference in that is that you may look at 100 deals. Let's go in a time machine and go back to 2020, and 16 of them would have worked. Maybe all of them. You could make a case for all the deals working. But now, if you look at the same 20 deals, maybe 2 of them work, or 1 of them work. I mean, we're looking at deals constantly. right? So it's just like it's a numbers game and it's a volume game. And so you have to continue doing your outflow. What is the outflow? Well, that's calls, mailers, networking with brokers, networking with wholesalers, networking with whoever the hell you can network with that could give you access to deals. Because I don't discriminate. I don't discriminate on, I'm like, nah, I don't use mailers. We're about to put a deal under contract that was through a mailer. And one of the 3 deals that we just bought was through a freaking mailer. Snail mail, baby. So I don't discriminate. If there's a medium that we can use to get deals, we're going to use that. We're going to use that. But the principles are still the same. And I get questions and I get asked from people all the time, and they're like, I can't find any deals. They're overpriced. But most of these people, I mean, they don't even know what kind of deals that they want. What kind of deals you want to buy? Well, I don't know. A good deal. Well, what is a good deal? Because that could be different to you. And if you've heard me talk about this, I did an underwriting webinar where we talked about this. You can go on YouTube and catch that for free. A good deal for Johnny may be not a good deal for you. So you have to decide that, right? When I first got into this business, I didn't really know what a good deal was either. I mean, I sort of did and sort of didn't, but how I learned is I actually got into a deal and bought the first deal, and we figured out, okay, this business model works. This is our business plan. We want to buy parks with all park-owned homes in great, growing, hot markets that we can convert to tenant-owned homes, and then we can actually increase value rapidly by doing that. So that was the business model that we found. Now, I don't know what that business model is for you, but you have to find that, right? You've got to find that. Like, do you want to buy deals that are, I don't know, like what is even the market that you want to buy in? I don't know. I just suggest that people buy close to them, but also it has to be a good market. And you have to know the market. Like, I think that's so important. The reason why I like, the Sun Belt and especially Florida, because I know the market like the back of my hand. You give me a market in Florida, and I'm like, boom, I know what the lot rent should be there. I know what the whatever should be there. I know what the demand is there. And so you have to know that market and know what kind of deals you want, right? Because it's harder to find deals now. And if you don't know that and you're just spraying and praying, then it's going to be difficult for you. It's going to be difficult. So you have to find the right market, and you have to understand what deal is good for you. Because again, that type of deal might not be good for someone else. Now, how could you look at a deal? Well, you could look at it based on cash flow and be like, hey, how much does this deal cash flow in place? Okay. If you're looking for in-place cash flow deals, you may have to look a little harder. You may have to look in some smaller markets, because if you're buying in a bigger market, your in-place cash flow is not going to be that great. In most cases. But if you're buying in a more rural market, yeah, I mean, you can have more cash flow for sure. So whatever that is, you got to make that decision and do that. But quit complaining that there's no deals out there, because they're out there. They're out there. There's so many different ways that you can look at deals. I mean, maybe you have, the way we look at deals now is a little bit different. Like, if we find a deal that the cash flow isn't great, but it's right next door to something that we already own, that may make more sense to us, and that may give us the opportunity to even pay a little bit more for it if we want, because it's close to us. So your criteria for deals may change, and it's situational. Like, I don't think you can have like, hey, this is a set criteria. You can, but you don't have to be completely rigid towards that. I'm looking at a deal right now that, the numbers are pretty tight on it, but it's right down the street, and it's, I don't know, over 200 units in a few parks. So it's like, that probably makes sense because that adds more scale in that area for us. Okay. So look, there's different ways you can look at a deal. Obviously, as I said, you have to find the market first and you have to know what kind of deals that you're looking for. Otherwise, you're just going to run around and you're going to be like, oh, I listened to Derek. He said this. I listened to somebody else's MHP podcast. He said this. You got to find out what's good for you. And I'd love to help you do that. I'd love to help you find the market and find the kind of deals that you want. Because once you find your mousetrap, and this is how we bought 20, I don't know, maybe it's 18, 20 parks in 2021, because we bought that first park and we had a clearly defined mousetrap. Like we knew exactly what freaking deals we want. And boom, we just freaking went after them. And I was like a sniper. I would drive around and be like, oh, that's a deal with all park-owned homes. I can tell because the houses are a disaster. You can tell because it's neglected. And we would want that deal. And so I would find that person's number and I would call them. But you can scale fast if you define your mousetrap. Okay. So do that. If you haven't done that today, you need to sit down and think about that. Because it's going to be harder in the beginning because you're going to find a deal and you're going to be like, oh my God, like, what the hell do I do with this? Is it good? Is it not good? You're going to email me and be like, Derek, is this a good deal? Which you can do, by the way, Derek at victorycapital.com. Would love to take a quick look at your deal if you do have some. That's Derek at victorycapital.com. And also, like, if you got a deal that we like and you're looking for partners, we'd be willing to do that too. But anyways, I'm not going to get into that. But as I digress here, completely lost my train of thought, but it's all good. So anyways, as we're talking about getting your first deal in this crazy world, now you may look at, as we talked a little bit before about interest rates, like, hey, interest rates are so high, I can't make the deals work. And that is definitely true. That is definitely true. And you're like, oh my God, I'm getting my first deal. How am I going to get financing on this deal? Okay. Now, the interesting thing here and the phenomena here, and I used to do this too, is that people worry about shit that doesn't matter before it matters, right? You're worried about the freaking financing and you don't even have a deal yet. That you're putting the cart before the horse. Yes, you should worry about financing, but like if you don't have a deal and you don't have anything going, like what are you going to do? I was working with a guy and we were basically, before we started working together, he's basically kind of calling banks to get, pre-qualified, which I guess it's not a terrible idea, but it's just difficult. Like a bank can say, yeah, we'll give you a loan, but they haven't even seen the deal yet. They may, and that may be a great idea, but they haven't even seen a deal that you have yet. So how are they going to know if they can even do the deal? Because when you're doing these now with a bank, the deal is based on, how great the deal is. And what I've learned, the debt's out there, folks. You can get it. It's just expensive. And, my thesis now is that if we can find a deal that pencils between 7 and 8% interest rates, we're going to be in good shape. Moving forward because, I would hope interest rates are going to go down. I don't know. What do you think? Even if they stay the same, there's going to be a lot of value add. And so you're going to be able to increase your NOI over the next 5 years or however long that term is. So my point in bringing that up, my point in saying that is like, you can't worry about some of this stuff before it happens. Like I got an email from a guy, which is fine. I understand that we have questions, but I don't think the guy has a park yet, which I've been there. I get it. But he was asking me questions about the stuff that didn't matter like yet. Like that's what we do. That's what we do in our program. I have 2 people that have like 3 months experience in mobile home parks, and they have deals under contract because what we do is we cut out all the bullshit and say, hey, we got to start looking at deals. We got to start calling deals. We got to get that deal flow going. We got to start sending LOIs. So you get over the freaking the first hesitation of sending LOIs. And so after you do that, you're like sending LOIs, because LOIs don't really matter, but they do show some seriousness, and they help you get more confidence in being able to like, shit, I'll send an LOI for this. And then the next thing we do when we find a deal we like, we're like, freaking send the contract. Send the contract, dude. If we like the deal and we can pay this number, let's send the contract. Last night, one of the guys has a deal under contract. He called me and he's hesitating a little bit. He's like, Derek, the seller sent the contract back. I think it's like 20 grand of earnest money on this deal. And he's like, so do I sign? Like, what I do, is everything good? And we had already went over if everything was good or not. So I knew it was good. And I'm like, just effing sign it, dude. Just sign the freaking contract, right? We're like, once we sign the contract, right? Yes, we're putting our earnest money down. We're going to have 45 days of due diligence. But if we find something that we don't like, we can back out of the deal. Okay. So like, I wouldn't let that scare you. Yes, there's a level of commitment there because you're going to start having to do your third-party reports. But you know, your earnest money is not going to be completely lost if you find out that there's, you know, a $200,000 septic issue and they won't give you a $200,000 discount or whatever. Then you can just back out on the deal. But when you do this and you play this game of like, hey, I really want to be in this business. Hey, I really want to find deals. Hey, I want to make this shit happen. You will make it happen. You will make it happen, because when your freaking money is on the line, you are going to overperform, right? And it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a little stressful. It's going to be a little scary. But I don't know about you, but that is a sign of growth. That is a sign of you stepping up. I mean, think about the first time that if you can even remember this, I don't know, the first time you rode a bike, first time you did a sales presentation, the first time you did, I don't know, took a girl to the movies, probably a little nervous. And then after you were a stud muffin or something for a while, you were cool with taking chicks to the movies after that. So it's just like that in getting deals. It's just like that in getting deals. You have to take the action, and then it's going to get easier for you because you're going to get used to like, oh, that wasn't that hard, right? The first time that we've taken people through deals, they're, you know, every single time they're like, oh, it actually wasn't that hard. I just needed you there, Derek, to give me some reassurance that I was doing the right thing. But most of the time that their decisions were actually good decisions, right? It's just that lack of confidence, right? And that's why you do need mentors and things like that. And I do agree. But the moral of the story is that you can absolutely do this. You just got to get down there and make it happen. The other thing I wanted to talk about here, because we do live in a crazy world full of distractions. This is going to kill people the most, right? In the crazy world that we're living in, the distractions, the political distractions, and all the other bullshit. I'm telling you, these are the times to press forward and keep going. Because most people aren't. Most people are going to be listening to the crap. They're going to be listening to all the junk on TV, which is comical, by the way. It's pretty comical. But you got to stay focused during these times. You got to freaking stay focused during these times, because there's people that's going to lose focus, and don't let that be you. Don't let that be you, and don't be the person that says you can't find good deals right now. Now, also, I would say, hey, if you can't find good deals right now, the next thing I would ask you, backing up to what we talked about before, you know, knowing what kind of deals that you want and knowing the market, like, you know, I would ask you this one thing, like, what are you doing for your outflow? Like, oh, Derek, I'm making 5 calls a day. Okay. Well, you're probably not going to find anything. And you're like, Derek, well, I got a 9 to 5 job. How the hell do I get my calls set up? Well, I get calls from plenty crappy VAs every day. Now, I will say this. I did get a call from a VA that actually was pretty good yesterday, but you can hire some of these people. Broderick said, send a couple of offers out, and someone mentioned I should wait until after the election. That's a good freaking point, dude. You're going to hear that. You're definitely going to hear that now. Yeah, if you don't hear that, you're not making calls, and you should be talking to people a lot. But what I'm saying is that, hey, you have to look. You can get a VA to call for you. You can get a VA to skip trace a list for you. If you're like, I don't have all the tools are available, and it doesn't even cost that much money. So let's just say you have a 9 to 5 job, and you're like, Derek, I have no time to do this shit, but I want to get into it. Which I had a 9 to 5 job. I actually had some VAs that were calling for me for insurance, and I actually made a little script and transitioned the best one, the one that had the most sense, to start calling and train them on a daily basis to at least have basic conversation, right? You have to at least give data. So it's not like this freaking call I had yesterday. I wish I could have recorded it. It was so terrible. You're never going to find any leads, right? And the point of doing that is to find deals, but it's also to get the outflow going, because they're going to find some people that maybe they're unreasonable on price. Maybe they're whatever, but maybe they're not real sellers. But once you get on the phone with these people, you're going to start getting more fluid. You're going to start understanding how the conversation goes. If you want to, ice break it with most of these mom and pop sellers, talk about how crazy the government is. And I guarantee you're going to get one of them oh my gosh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. That's a great icebreaker, especially nowadays. Okay, but you can do that, and it doesn't cost that much money to do that. But you have to do some training with the VA so they don't sound like a freaking idiot, and they're not just calling and saying, hey, do you want to sell? And then you say no, and then they freaking hang up. You can't have that. You have to at least teach them a little dialogue, at least get them able to interact in a somewhat intelligent way, because then that will yield you more results. And basically they're just trying to find the people that say they want to sell, and then they're going to transition that lead to you to then call and then start that conversation. Right. So that's one way to do it. You get them, you can get someone on Fiverr to basically get the list and skip trace the list of the area that you want to buy in. And you can start calling that list. It's not going to be perfect. The numbers are going to be bad, for sure. But you at least have to get that outflow going. And this is not going to cost you that much money. It's just going to cost you a little bit of muscle too. The other thing you can do is the mailers. I love mailers. And you just got to send a basic mailer. Doesn't have to say much, and you'll get some calls from it. You'll get some calls from it. I think the last batch of mailers that we've sent, we've gotten 12 calls. I don't think Paul, if Paul was around, we could get the exact stats, but it's a couple thousand mailers to a deal or something. Crazily enough. So I'm like, shit, we're going to keep sending mailers. I had a guy from a mailer call me yesterday just because my last name was Vickers, and he ran track in the 70s for I don't know, some SEC school. And he ran against a guy named Vickers. And so he called me. He's like, I'm not trying to sell now, but call me in the future as a 50 space park, whatever. So I love mailers. And then networking, right? Look, all you have to do is, if you're new into this business or whatever, get on my Facebook group and say, hey, I'm John Smith. I'm new into this business. I'm looking for deals in, Iowa, Wyoming, Texas, wherever you're looking at. And people will start to reach out to you. And also, if you go on the Facebook group too, you can see where, there's different wholesalers and brokers that post deals on a daily basis. Reach out to them and connect with them. All right. Because then they'll start sending you stuff and get more active and start building the relationship. Don't just do one message. Don't just do one message. Like, continue to follow up with them and connect with them, and they will be more likely to send deals your way because they get hit up all the time. So you have to, separate yourself from the person, because you can't be the person that's just so interested in mobile home parks or getting into real estate for, a day, and then you hit everybody up and then you don't follow up again, because then they're gonna be like, yeah, this guy's a flake. This guy's a flake. But once you do that and you continue to do that, you will start to get more deals. Another thing that you can do that doesn't cost you money, and most people are going to be like, no, Derek, I'm not doing that. I can't do what you do. Start posting about shit on Facebook. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. If you really want to get into this business, tell everybody what you're doing. Like, hey, I'm looking at deals today. I made some calls with a seller today, because then you'll be active, and then you'll start, people will be like, oh, this guy's serious. Like, hey guys, I made 50 million calls today, or whatever. That's going to start making you more relevant. And I know, people that listen to this are going to roll their freaking eyes right now and be like, I can't do that. Well, you don't have to do that, but I'm just telling you what works. Okay. Since I got on social media and started doing stuff, I have deals coming at me all the time, even deals from markets that I won't buy, and I just pass them to someone else. But also I make it known, what kind of deals I'm looking for and where I'm trying to buy. And, I get a lot of deals brought to me before most people would, because, people know that we can close, and we're buying in certain areas. So when people find a deal in that area, they're going to send it over. All right. So look, maybe I'm missing something that you can do to get more outflow on finding deals, but I don't think I am. You can scale it up. You can hire more callers. You can make more calls yourself. And I freaking guarantee you, like, I will guarantee you, if you do that, you do those things that I mentioned. You don't have to do mailers. Sometimes they can be pricey, but if you at least start calling and do it religiously, you're going to start to build a pipeline of deals. You're going to start to build, you're going to have a pipeline. And the pipeline is going to grow over time, and you're going to start like, hey, all right, I got some deals working now. I got some stuff working now. But if you don't do that and you're just like, oh, the market freaking sucks, I can't find any deals, then, good luck to you, because you got a shitty attitude. That's the bottom line there. And then when you do that, right? So we have to take you from like nothing and knowing nothing all the way up to closing the deal. So after you get your pipeline going. Oh, and also one thing that I will mention, like, don't be scared to look at LoopNet, and don't be scared to look at Corexy and get on the deal notification list in your market, because you can find some deals on there. We've bought deals from LoopNet. You get the Resi broker who doesn't really know what he's doing. Like, shout out to Resi brokers. I know a couple, but sometimes a residential broker will list a mobile home park. They'll list a mobile home park, and it actually won't be that crazily priced, but it'll go fast. So you have to jump on that stuff. This takes me into the next thing, sending LOIs. And we talked about this a little bit before, but you're going to be scared to send the LOI, because you're going to be like, oh my God, what if they freaking sign this thing? What's going to happen? Well, when they sign the LOI, this is what happens. Nothing. Doesn't bind you to anything. Doesn't bind them to anything. It's just sort of like a commitment. And then you move to contract. Sometimes the situation is, warrants just going straight to contract. But, start sending out LOIs. Like, hey, if you find a deal and you're like, hey, I could pay this price. If it's completely ridiculous, it may not be worth your time. But you can start sending these out just to get the action, right? And get over that little thing that stops you from actually taking the action, right? That little hesitation there, whatever that is it a doubt, an uncertainty, lack of confidence, or not knowing, right? But you just kind of get over that, right? Once you start doing that, right, then you're going to run into the wall of hey, I got to send a contract. So we send an LOI, the seller accepted, and you're like, damn, like this deal actually does work. And look, real estate in general is a little bit of commit first and figure the rest out later. It just is. It just is. And so if you're not cool with that, if you're not cool with a little bit of risk, then maybe this game isn't for you. But we get to the contract, we agreed on the price, and you're like, shit, 10 grand of earnest money, 20 grand, whatever it is, I got to send that in. So now we can get you over doing that, right? Because there's going to be like, yes, the LOI, but then there's going to be a higher gradient because you are committed to a degree when you do send the contract. So, but again, you're never going to get to the contract. Like, so don't ask me like, hey, Derek, on the contract, what do I do here? Do you have a deal yet? No. Like, well, that's out of sequence, right? It's okay to ask questions about that, but like, you don't even have a deal yet. Okay. So sending the contract will be your next hurdle. And once you do that, then you get used to doing that. You get over it. So then once you're at that point, right, you're like, all right, I've gotten past the contract part. And right here, I'm telling you what's going to be going through your mind. How am I going to get the money? I don't have enough money to do it myself. How are we going to get financing? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? It happens. I know. It is going to happen. There's going to be all kinds of shit going through your head, all kinds of doubts, uncertainties. But just remember, step back from all this crap up here for a second and be like, hey, all right, let's be rational about this. Have we underwritten it correctly? Yes. Is it in a great market? Yes. Is our business plan, sound, right? And we feel good about this deal, then like, let's move forward. So sometimes you have to pull yourself out of whatever's here because whatever's there is going to tell you like, don't do this. You're scared. You're an idiot or whatever. You have to, kind of pull yourself out of it and just like, hey, we're going to take action on this deal. And then once you do that and send the contract, you will get over that hurdle. You'll get over that hurdle, right? And so the next time, so maybe you send that contract and you don't buy that deal. Okay. Well, you get your earnest money back. Maybe you paid for a phase one or a survey or something. So you lost a few grand, which sucks, right? But that's a cost of doing business. And if you want to get into this business, you're going to have to, that's going to happen. We backed out on deals before and I've lost, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. And, I would rather lose $9 grand up front than, buy a shitty deal for whatever reason. So after we get it under contract, then you're going to go into the DD period, which it'll calm down a little bit because if you have, a DD checklist, which, we know the most important things to get first. The most important things to get first. Obviously, you can order your surveys and phase ones and things, but your zoning verification letter. We've made this mistake before. We've waited until the end of due diligence to get a zoning verification letter, spent all this freaking money up front when we could have just looked in the beginning and be like, oh, the zoning's jacked up here. I don't do that. Like basic stuff, get your zoning verification letter and check the flood zone. I would do that because I don't like to buy in flood zones. Maybe I know people that are like, screw it, man, I'll just buy in a flood zone. But if I'm buying in Florida, I feel like I need to stay away from a flood zone. So check that. And I'm telling you guys all this because these are mistakes that I've made before. So the other thing that I would do initially too is start contacting code enforcement in the health department and to get all that data from them that you need, if that's necessary. Maybe you're on city water and city sewer and you don't need to do that. But if you are on well and septic, you need to get those inspections done quickly. And I've screwed this up too. I've waited till the end to get a well inspection, and then we find out that it needs a new pump or something. And maybe it's $5 grand, and then I got to go back to the seller after I've already renegotiated something, right? So you just want to know this stuff up front, because if you get that stuff up front, It gives you more negotiating power, and then also you can, not have to retrade twice, right? You can do that. What's up, Mark? You can do that. You can go back and retrade twice, but every time you retrade, it just gets a little bit more uncomfortable. So the due diligence, you'll calm down a little bit. You'll be able to get that done, but you'll be like, oh my God, I'm spending money on this, blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing you're going to worry about, okay? And I'm taking you through this as like the first time you do this. So I'm just telling you because I've done this before. So then your first time you retrade, you're going to be probably a little meh about that. But I'll just give you my tips for doing a retrade here. Like, you don't want to just be a dick and retrade just for S's and giggles here. Like, if you do a septic inspection, if you do a well inspection, and you're like, okay, guys, I see that there's I'll give you an example. This deal we found out, this deal we just closed, we found out that there was one of the lift stations basically needed a new pump there. It was like $7 or $8 grand. And one of the vacant houses was sort of represented differently. We needed the vacant lots needed to be brought up so we could move in new homes. This was all like 60 grand or something. And so you always ask for a little bit more, maybe ask for 70 and you end up somewhere in there. But I'm going to the seller with like, hey, this is what this costs, like actual invoices. Hey, I got an invoice or an estimate for this. And that's the other reason why you want to do the septic and well inspections first, because it may take the company a second to get out there and they've got to give you quotes on stuff that needs to get fixed. So you can go back to the seller and be like, hey, this is going to cost 10 grand. This is your deferred maintenance, not mine. You've been taping stuff for the last 30 years. So you go to the seller and you're like, hey, these are the things I found. And this is why I want a $60,000 discount, $100,000, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is. And sellers will respect that and they'll be more like, okay, this guy's just not being an ass. Like, he's actually, he's done his due diligence and boom. So those can be uncomfortable too, depending on who you're dealing with. Now, the next part that people start worrying about before they even have a deal is how they're going to get the financing. And look, I understand the worry behind that, right? I understand the worry behind that. But what we've actually started to employ is using a mortgage broker. Now, you do have to pay them. It's usually typically 1% of the loan value, but you can use a mortgage broker and they'll do all that work for you because they already have the banking relationships. They already have the relationship. They already know the banks that are actually going to do a mobile home park deal, because you could dial for dollars in your area, and you could do that. I did that at first. You can dial for dollars in your area, and you could end up like calling 20 banks and spending, conversations with them, and they don't even do mobile home park deals. And if you do that, the first thing I would ask them is that, hey, do you guys have any mobile home parks in your portfolio? Any manufactured housing assets in your portfolio? And if they say no, then I'd probably move on, because getting a bank to do their first mobile home park deal will be really fun for you. It'll be totally fun, because they'll be like, wait, well, what is this park owned thing? And what is this? And yeah, I would work with somebody that has done it before. But we started to employ mortgage brokers because they do a great job, and they will do a lot of the dirty work for you, negotiating back with the bank, telling you like, hey, we need this, this, and this. And so you don't have to go back and forth with the bank yourself. They do that, right? And eventually we may bring someone in-house that does that, but they'll help you find the financing for it. And then the next thing, you're like, Derek, I have no balance sheet. I have no cash to do this. How am I going to do this? Well, that's where a partner is going to have to come into play, because the bank is going to look for you to have 10% of the loan amount liquid, whether that's cash, stocks, maybe personal. I think it's just probably cash and stocks, or something can be really, really liquid. And then you have to have a net worth greater than the loan amount as well. And maybe there's some give and take on some of that. I'm not an expert on that, but that's what, in my experience, you have to have, right? And so you may have an instance, if you're not doing seller financing, you're going to have to bring in a partner. And there's tons of people that want to partner with people on deals. There's a lot of people that they've got money, and they love mobile home parks, but they don't want to go to the trailer park and knock on the door and post notices. I can tell you that right now. They love the concept of the asset class. I mean, who wouldn't? But again, you just have to get your networking shoes on. And like, if you're really committed about getting into this business, you will find somebody. I mean, go on the Facebook group. Hey, I got a deal, blah, blah, blah. Where I'm looking to partner with someone, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You may not get anybody at first, but like, if you start doing that and being active on this stuff, you can find a partner. I could do a whole podcast on finding a partner. And so look, I will say this. I talked about committing first and figuring the rest out later on this. And you're going to have to do this to a degree at some point when you're finding deals. You're just going to have to do it. You're just going to have to do it. And it's going to be a little stressful and whatnot. But when you do that, it's going to cause you to perform at a higher level. Whenever I have done that and my ass is on the line and that it's like possible for me to lose money, it causes you to perform at a different level. It causes you to do things that you may not necessarily do. Like, you may not, hey, I'm not going to call this guy. I don't feel like calling this guy, like, whatever. But if you're like, you could lose 50 grand or whatever you've got invested into this deal, then you're going to call the guy. You're going to call the guy, unless you just have a bunch of money and you don't care about 50 grand. But I doubt that. But I'm telling you, at some point, like, the stars are not going to align when you're doing these deals, right? And I know I took you through the steps kind of pretty easily, but the stars are not going to align. You're going to go through due diligence, and you're going to go back and forth. You're going to be like, oh, is this a deal killer? Is this not? You're going to get scared. You're going to be like, shit, like, what am I doing? Like, all this stuff is going to go through your head. I'm just telling you. I know. Getting the deal under contract is one thing, and actually taking it across the finish line is another thing. I take some confront. You have to be able to, like, hey, we got to look at this and go. Like, it takes some confront. And, you're just going to have to get okay with committing first and figuring the rest out later on that. Another thing I wanted to mention on finding the money, like, you're going to have to set some groundwork for this first off. Like, I know people say that, like, hey, if you find a deal, the money will follow, blah, 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 blah. And that is true to a degree. But you have to tee people up for this before. Like, I don't know how many contacts you have in your phone. I'm sure there's some people you could tee up, like, hey, I'm looking to invest in mobile home parks. I don't have any deals now, but when I do, I'd love to send it over to you. Would you be interested in that? Most people are going to say they're interested, by the way. So if you've done this step before, just make sure you have a lot of them, because you're going to be like, oh shit, I asked 20 people and they all said they would be interested. And then when you get a deal, you're going to go ask them to invest, and they're going to say, oh, I'm good. I'm good. So you have to have more people in line, and your pipeline of investors has to be bigger. What would be easier for you is to find one investor in the beginning, to fund all your deals. But I'm telling you, if you get committed to doing this, you will pull in all those things that you need to get those deals. And so then when you raise the money, you got to get the money. You have to actually get people to wire in the money. That's one thing. And then you're closing. And then you're going to be all happy. And then you got to operate the damn thing. After that, you got to operate the thing. So I get people all the time that don't have parks, ask me these very intricate questions about operations. I'm like, dude, I will tell you the answer, but like I wouldn't be worrying about that right now. You're like, you don't have a deal. You don't have anybody that'll invest in your deal right now. So you're a long way from what do you do when the drain field blows out, or what do you do when the well goes out and no one has water? So you just like, I just think it's out sequence to start thinking about those things and being like, oh my God, like this, and like really, listening to everything and listening to every podcast. And you should do that, right? You have success zombies out there, and we have mobile home park zombies too. Like I've talked to a guy, cool guy, by the way. And, he's been trying to get into this business for a long time and has never done it because the first steps that I talked about before, there was never any action taken there. And he's like, man, I should have started buying these things in the early 2000s. Well, yeah, we all freaking wish that. We all wish that. So don't be that guy. Don't be that guy, because, don't worry about what's going to happen when you evict a tenant before you even have a park. Like, or what's your eviction process going to be? I'm telling you, like, a lot of this stuff you are going to sort of find out on the go. Like, and there's just only so much that you can find out in the beginning, right? Before you go. Hisham, what's up, man? Let's see. What do you got here? How would you go about underwriting the upfront reserves to have on hand for a park that has a near end of life time horizon on a package plan? Would you raise, say, 20% of that replacement cost to fund the deal and increase reserves heavily per year, or raise much more at the beginning of the deal, like 50% more of replacement cost of the package plant? Would you let LPs know there may be a capital call needed when this happens, but it's been accounted for in underwriting? Yeah, it's so great. Yeah, it's a good question. So I would say the packaging plant, obviously, if you're still looking at this, I hope the deal still works. But I never want to do a capital call. So I'm going to raise that money up front. I would get a solid quote on that from a couple different people. My guess, I don't know if the whole plant's going out or what you have to do there, but I always raise the money up front. And we actually always, like, so on the deals that we just bought, one of them was well and septic. We actually brought an extra 30 grand just to have in reserves for infrastructure if something were to happen. But that's in addition to the price negotiations that we did, and the money we brought to pay for that. So I always have that. And then, Hisham, after you operate these parks and stuff, you'll get more comfortable with, okay, we fixed the packaging plant. Now it's running well. So if you bring that extra capital and you end up not having to use that, then you can distribute it back out to your investors. But I would get if I know I'm going to have to replace the packaging plant, the deal better be really freaking good. And it better be worth it for me to do that. But I would bring all that money up front, because, like, even if you tell your LPs, like, hey, we may have to do like, first of all, if you tell an LP that, like, hey, we're raising this money, but we may have to do a capital call, they're going to be like, I'm good. Because Hisham, you probably know this, because your LPs, one of the most questions that they always have is what it says about capital calls in the operating agreement. I mean, it's just that's just the thing that they're going to ask. So yeah, that's what I do. I'm a big proponent of raising more money up front, even though it may dilute the returns a little bit. But not really if you know if you know that you're going to have to fix it. I would just be smart about that. The dumb thing would be to do nothing. So it's good that you're looking at that. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Yeah, and I would say, like, that's huge too. Now what we're seeing that we're having to bring, 50% of the purchase price to the table on some of these deals. Because if we're buying a deal that, obviously the in-place cash flow isn't that great, the bank is not going to release as much funds as you may think. It may be like 55% leverage. And once you hit a 1.3 or a 1.35 debt coverage ratio, they'll release those funds back to you. But, it's just more money you got to bring up front, which, is never good. But what I was getting at there is like, don't go into these deals thinking that you're only going to need the 35% down, that the bank told you the leverage is going to be 65% and whatnot. Even when you're doing seller financing, right? You do not want to bootstrap deals. Second deal we bought, we bootstrapped it. We only brought, I don't know, maybe like 50, 75K of CapEx and like working capital, which really this deal needed probably 200K. Now, I will say this, we made it work. But like, this park, there really wasn't that much revenue coming in. And so we had to sell houses. And so like accounts getting low, Derek's stressing, we sell a house and then, oh, it's good. You just have to do some kind of maneuvering there, but it's not fun. So I'm a big proponent of capitalizing these things pretty heavy up front because they're going to need it, especially with older infrastructure. So anyways, so got off on a little tangent there, but if anybody else has questions, would love to answer them for you. But, the whole point of today's show was just like, hey, I want to make this simpler for you because we can overcomplicate things. I mean, that's just what we do, right? That's just what we do. We make it seem more complicated than it is. After you get through this process, you'll be like, okay, it wasn't that bad. But, if you overcomplicate things, you'll get analysis paralysis. And we all know what that is. We've heard of it before. You don't want to be that guy. So, you just got to take action, man. And I know it's like, oh, Derek's telling me to take action. I roll my eyes. I get it. But most of the time, the people that are rolling their eyes are the ones that are not doing anything. So would love to help you. Would love to help you with any of your mobile home park investing needs. Again, you can find a deal in this crazy world. Just stay focused, stay in action, and just take those steps. And yes, it's going to be stressful. It's going to be uncomfortable, but you will find a deal. And obviously happy to help in any way I can. If you get on here and shoot me some questions, would love to answer because I've made a ton of mistakes and I've probably experienced some of the things that you may have questions on. Okay, guys. So that is it for this week's episode of the MHP Show. I like doing these live. It's pretty fun. And we'll also have it up. It'll post on Monday. And we'll look to see you guys next week. Hisham had another question here. I'm going to answer it really quick. At what point do you think the lot size to fit home, and yard size will begin to affect lot rates in Tampa or a very large metro? I'm assuming once you hit close to 1K lot rent in Tampa, the lot size will start to impact your ability to push rents. Have you seen this becoming an issue in any of your parks in Tampa where you can increase rents as much with smaller lot size parks? Good question. Haven't seen that as an issue. It's a place to live. Because yes, if you're looking in Tampa, it's going to be dense. If you're looking in a big metro, it's going to be dense, but we haven't seen that affect lot rent rates. I mean, it's a product of multifamily, right? Like, so multifamily is going to be creeping because mobile home parks are still so far behind. They're still pretty far behind. I mean, you can maybe get something cheaper in Tampa, but you're going to have to be ducking. You're going to have bullets coming through the walls at night. But I haven't seen that start affecting it yet. So anyways, guys, hey, thank you guys for tuning in to the MHP Show. Join the Facebook group, Mobile Home Park Investing Pros. And we will see you all next week. Please like and subscribe. Peace out.